Welcome. Today, we're going to discuss transformations in rigid motion. Here we have a map. Let's call it G. And what it does, it maps each coordinate point x comma y to the point x minus 3 comma y plus 1. So let's rephrase this mapping. We're going to get a coordinate point x comma y, and we're going to map it to a new location. And that new location is x minus 3 comma y plus 1. If this is the case, then we can consider x comma 1 as if it was the pre-image, because those are the values that we're going to plug into the mapping, and x minus 3 y plus 1, we can consider this as the image of the mapping. So what notation can we use to illustrate this idea? Well, we can start by naming the map, which in this case is G. And then we're going to say, we're going to get the pre-image, which we already said that it was x comma y. And then we're going to do an arrow to indicate where is it mapping. Now, we know that this is mapping to the location of x minus 3 comma y plus 1. So within this location, this arrow, it implies the mapping. On the left-hand side, notice that we have the pre-image. And on the right-hand side, notice that here we have the image. Let's consider 2 points, 2, 4 and 5, 2. And let's perform this mapping on those 2 coordinate points. So we're going to start by naming the mapping, which is called G. And then we're going to list the point, which in this case, we're going to get the point 2, 4. And then we're going to map it. But to perform this mapping, let's understand the behavior of x. Here, we have a coordinate point, and then it got placed to a new location, x minus 3. So all we're doing, we're just taking away 3 units away from x. And if that's the case, then my new location is going to be 2 minus 3. And when it comes to y, notice that we're mapping it to the location of y plus 1. We're adding 1 unit to the y's, so therefore my new location is going to be 4 plus 1. So let's simplify this. Now we need to indicate that this new coordinate point is the image of P. And to do so, we're going to use the prime notation. So we're going to use P prime. This is implying that there was a coordinate point called P, and after some transformation, the image, and that's what we use a little prime in there, it's at the location of -1, 5. Now let's map the coordinate point of Q. So let's start by naming the mapping, which is G. Let's set the pre-image, which in this case is point Q, 5, 2, and let's give it a mapping. So let's remind ourselves that 5, we're going to plug it in and subtract 3 to it. So we're going to get 5 minus 3. And y, we're going to add 1 to it. So we're going to get 2 plus 1. So now our new location is the image of Q. So we got to use the notation of Q prime. Now let's simplify this. Now let's show this mapping in the coordinate plane. Let's remember ourselves what was the mapping. We got a point called P, and its location was 2, 4, and it got mapped to a new location, which we found it to be as -1, 5. And then we got another point. We're going to call it Q. The original location was 5, 2, and then it got mapped to a new location, which we defined it as 2, 3. Let's start by plugging the pre-image values, which is 2, 4 and 5, 2. Now let's connect those points. And now let's plot the image points that we obtained. -1, 5 and 2, 3. Let's connect those points. So let's visualize what this mapping did. It got this point, P, and then it mapped it to a new location. And then this same mapping, it got point Q, and then it mapped it to a new location. So all it did is just assign a new location to a given coordinate point. Can we label this mapping as an isometry? Well, let's define what an isometry mapping is. An isometry mapping is when the image is congruent to the pre-image. So to answer this question, we have to think about, is PQ congruent to P prime Q prime? Is the line segment that is created by the two pre-image, is that congruent to the line segment that we created with the images? Which in this case, it does, because notice that all we did, we just changed locations. We just moved the line segment, so the size of the line segment did not change. So we can say that PQ is congruent to P prime Q prime. Therefore, we can say that the mapping G, it's an isometry. Let's take a look at another example. So here now, we have a map, let's call it H, and it's going to get a coordinate point, x, y, and it's going to give it a new location, defined by 3x, y plus 1. So the notation that we can use here, we can start by naming the mapping, which is H. Let's list the pre-image, which is a coordinate point, x, y, and then we're going to map it to a new location, 3x, y plus 1. If you want to describe the behavior of this mapping, what it's going to do, we're going to get a coordinate point of x, and then we're going to multiply by 3, and then we're going to get a value of y, and then we're going to add 1 to it. So let's perform that mapping. Let's start by listing the mapping. Let's plug in our pre-image, which is the point 1, 4. And remember what we're doing? We're multiplying by 3, so we're going to get 3 times 1, and then y, we're going to add 1 to it. Let's define the image, so we can call that P prime. Now let's map point Q. X is going to get multiplied by 3. And then we're going to add 1 value to y. And now let's simplify this. Now let's show this mapping on the coordinate point. Let's remind ourselves about the mapping. We have a coordinate point, which we call it 1, 4, and then it got mapped to the location of 3, 5. And then we got a point, which we defined it as 2, -3, and then it got mapped to a new location, defined as 6, -2. Let's plot the pre-image points in blue. Let's connect them. Now let's map the image point. Now let's connect the coordinate points. Let's remind ourselves what was the mapping. So notice that the y value is just getting moved. It is just getting shifted. But now notice that with x, we are making the value of x larger by a factor of 3. Because the value of x is getting multiplied by 3, then we can say that the pre-image, it's not congruent to the image. And because the image is not congruent to the pre-image, then we can say that the mapping of H is not an isometry. Hello, if you would like to continue to learn about mathematics, you can check out the videos on the left.